Next item on the agenda is citizen comment. Speakers must sign up prior to the meeting and provide their names, addresses, and topic of which they will speak on. Speakers must direct all comments to the board only. Speakers will be allotted 3 minutes to speak on their chosen topic that relates to matters pertinent to the jurisdiction of the Board of Commissioners. No questions will be asked by any of the commissioners during citizens' comment. Outbursts from the audience will not be tolerated. Common courtesy and civility are expected at all times during the meeting. First person to scratch their name out. Next person is Harold Distel. Yes, sir, please. And when you come up, give your name again and your address so we can record it on the record.
Harold Distel, 1300 Overzatella Road, Williamson, but Spalding County.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right, real quick question. Rita, I think you sent the paper to commissioners to give you false information. I mean, not the commissioner, but the tax assessor's office. I assure you they do, because I've been told a couple of different things. I wanted to speak on the airport. Oh, use that up. There we go. Well, I'll just lean over. I'll speak on the airport real fast. What happened to the $3 million? We borrowed $6 million, but I thought we had $3 million saved up for the airport as we were doing it in the spring. I wonder what happened to that.
You're taller than I am. I set it up for short me.
Okay, another question I had, the terminal building is at a cost, they said $3.1 million. I don't know why we need that big a terminal building, but if I read the FAA things, it's fundable. That is not fundable by what I read on the computer on the FAA. And also, communication towers are going to have to be moved. If I count right, probably 8 to 10 of them. That is not on the FAA's fundable list either. And if I figure right, you're probably going to be at least 12 to 15 million to build a new airport. That is if the FAA funds their share, like we're hoping they do, if we don't run over on the cost. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. John Mellon.
Hello, John Moline, 1913 Jackson Road, Griffin. I have an issue with a statement that was printed in the paper last week by one of the city commissioners after their meeting. He stated that the runway would go north of the gas lines. It's true, it is going north of 5 or 6, but it is going to cross one. Atlanta Gas Light put the gas line in next to the 2 power lines about 3 or 4 years ago. And I brought this to the attention of the planning committee, and I've mentioned it several times, but people do not accept the fact that when I'm saying it, it's like, I don't think anybody has ever been out and walked on the ground to see what's there. If they have, I haven't known about it. But that's all I've got to say about it. To me, it seems rather odd that they're gonna, you got a problem because they're gonna land right back, right close to where the gas line is.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mullane. Norma Giles.
Norma Giles, 302 Elizabeth Lane, Griffin, Georgia, Baldwin County. And I cannot believe that this panel of supposed intelligent adults, our county attorney, okay, every part of this agreement that y'all are planning on signing, especially the number 10, where if the FAA defaults on their agreement, or they decide to step aside, that Spalding County, City of Griffin, and the authority will be responsible for all monies due after this airport goes into work started on it. That's billions of dollars that you're expecting this county that had to borrow money to meet payroll. I just can't believe that you people are doing this. And I cannot believe that you have an attorney that will do it. I think it's just kind of like the splash. We ought to not vote for it, take the spending money away from it. We can't play with it and listen to the people of your county that elected you and expect you to do what's the best for us. I don't have $1 billion. If you got deep pockets, you put it up.
Thank you, Ms. Giles. Next item on the agenda is the minutes. Consider approval of the minutes for October 6, 2014 regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners.
Mr. Chair, move to approve the October 6, 2014 regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners.
Second.
Have a motion for approval by Commissioner Ray, second by Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 5-0, thank you. Consent agenda, consider approval on second reading and ordinance amending the FY 2015 budget ordinance to provide for the 2015 tax levy.
This is second reading of this. In order to balance the budget, we're appropriating lost reserve funds in order to do that, and this budget amendment takes care of that.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Let's see, Mr. Chair, move to appropriate $876,815 in lost reserve funds in order to balance the budget as required by the official code of Georgia.
Second.
Okay, have a motion for approval, second by Commissioner Ray, second by Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 5-0, thank you. We have no old business. Under new business, consider approval of the memorandum of agreement between the FAA, the City of Griffin, Spalding County, and the Griffin-Spalding County Airport Authority for replacement of the Griffin-Spalding County Airport.
Mr. Chairman, both Chairman of the Airport Authority and Airport Director are here if the board has any questions.
I would simply like for the authority to explain the memorandum of understanding that was referenced
Good evening.
by Ms. Giles. Hey.
Thank you. Thank you, lady. Appreciate the opportunity. Let me mention 2 or 3 things because I think it's important that we get some of these things out in the open and explain. And at the end, I can also answer some of the questions that were asked earlier, if you so incline. After many years of twists and turns and strange route, weve got to this point where we're at the final approval and signature to open the federal money process to build a new airport. This agreement with the FAA was unanimously approved by the Airport Authority a week ago Monday, by all 9 members, including your Mr. Ray and Mr. Miller, who sat on the Airport Authority, and we did actually discuss item 10 at that meeting. Last Tuesday, at the City Commission, it was also approved unanimously by all 7 members. So having said all that, we're over here for the last vote and approval to put the wheels in motion. First thing that's come up, I want to mention real quickly local content because I think it's important, and it's been brought up before, and as I've said on the record, local content is important, I think, and this is one of the main reasons for the airport is to create businesses and jobs. However, I do want you to understand that the airport construction itself, the dirt moving, the runway, the taxiways, the actual airport, and the navigation aids, is a federal project administered by GDOT. It works basically the same as the highway projects out here, which have federal money and GDOT management. GDOT handles the federal money on the state level. And we are not allowed to specify local content in those jobs, just like we're not out here on the state highway, federal highway projects. That's their money, their rules. Oh, we can do a couple things, and I've talked to our consultant to see if there's anything we can do. And he said there are a couple things that we can do to help. One is, as we get our annual money allocation, rather than taking one bite, say for instance, one of the early projects will be clearing and grading, we can, if you get enough money for phase 1, say clearing and grading, what we can do is break it down into pieces, make it easier for local contractors. Whoever bids the overall job has to meet all the federal and state insurance and bonding requirements, which are considerable in a project this size. But if we specify the different pieces of it, that encourages whoever gets the bid to bid the subparts out to local contractors. For instance, clearing and grading would have timber cutting, timbering, stump removal, grader work, probably some trucking work, have silt fence work, those sorts of pieces. And our contractor said what we need to do, and he would be willing to work with us on this, is to take the overall contract and break out subparts, so whoever gets a contract would be encouraged to take those pieces and bid out locally. And a lot of you local contractors would be successful. For instance, the logging company would probably be a local company. Nobody's going to come in from Savannah to buy and do our logging. Silt fence is another good example of local contractors. So we can make it easy for local contractors, easier, if you will, to bid on the parts. Of course, understand they have to meet state and federal insurance and bonding requirements. But locally at the airport authority, we'll have no control over all this. This is above our pay grade, as they say, and which is good. I don't want to be in charge of picking contracts. He also said that what we need to do is early on have some outreach to local contractors through our building permit, city and county folks, and let them know that this is coming and what's going to be available, so the local contractors know there's an opportunity to bid on some of this, and our outreach could probably help us. So I think those are two good suggestions that are perfectly fine to do. We just can't control it. The other thing is later on, when we get later stages, we're building hangars, for instance, and a terminal. Those are local projects, and we will be the contractor to take the bid. So we can have specified local content on our projects, and I would recommend we do so. And as you probably saw from my email, I invited Mr. Almin and anybody else to come to our next meeting and throw this out on the table so we can discuss local content requirements for any contract that we run, because I do think it's important. And we've been doing that locally on the existing airport, encouraging local guys and gals, I guess, and we've been fairly successful. So I hope that answers the local content rules, but it's a good cause, good point. Another thing that comes up, and it's brought up here again tonight, this item number 10, which on first reading you go, what? Well, let me say what the FAA told us. This is not Griffin Spalding specific. Everybody signs this paperwork and always has. There are some early on parts that refer to Griffin Spalding County as part of the contract, but the other, all those whereases are FAA contracts, and they said this is it. And the reason it's in there, and I talked to Scott Surratt, who's 30 plus years with the FAA and the manager of the local area until he retired recently. He now works for GDOT in aviation. And Scott said every multi-year grant that they put out, it's the same boilerplate. And the reason is, many years ago, the FAA just had a standard little agreement with folks, and they found that local boards changed. Not saying none of us get de-elected and others re-elected, but he said what happened with the local commissions and boards is one group would get go out of office, another group come in and say, no, we don't want the airport, we want this. And so the FAA got stuck sort of holding the bag. And so Scott said for over 30 years he's known every multi-year grant has the same basic language. One-year grants don't. They assume the commissions aren't going to change that year. So our grants at the existing airport, if they're one-year grants, don't have it. If they're multi-year grants, it's this language is in there. So what it really is in there for is to say, we're going to pay for this. And they said the FAA has always paid for them, and they always will. They said there's no difference. But if you try to back out and change things or not come up with a local match or do something that in later years, a different group, it's not going to happen. And they do have the right to force you to pay for it on your own if you don't follow the rules that we've agreed to here. And like I said, that's federal language. I will say, you'll notice, and he pointed this out, he said, even though you might be required if you don't meet, if you read the whole paragraph, it talks about not meeting the rules. He said, you notice that there is no time limit in there. So you might take 1,000 years to build the airport from your own money, but So there's no time limit in there that would really give it teeth. He said, this is just to let you know, we're signing the agreement in good faith. We expect you and the succeeding commissions to continue in good faith. And that's the FAA answer. So we all signed it, we understand it, and we agreed to it, and it won't change. On an airport, that's the FAA rules.
Mr. Morrow?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. So this is the same type of grant agreement that we have been using at the airport that is in existence now for the grant?
If it's multi-year grant, just one. So, like I said, they don't know who's going to be a commissioner next year or the year after. So this is on there. So that's what it is. So that's the rules, and it's not, I don't think, any serious issue. If you'd like, I'll address a couple of questions that came up here if you want me to.
Appreciate the clarification.
Okay. The terminal is not federally funded, that's correct. The terminal is on us. And that's why we are putting up for sale, as soon as this last signature's on here, we've already talked to some real estate companies. I'm gonna have a local real estate company day, if you will, for local realtors. They'll know that the existing airport's for sale. We've had two firms in Atlanta, one's a national firm already actually showed up down here and want to look at what's for sale. So we sell the existing airport, and we need to use the money. It has to go back in the airport projects. It can't come back to city and county. It has to stay in the airport projects. So our plan is to sell the existing airport, all 200 acres of Seward commercial industrial property with one very large parking lot, and put the money in the new terminal. New terminals around and the other airports around the building will run between $2 to $4 million, maybe a $2 million project, but we plan on the airport authority to do that with our money from the airport as we raise. And assuming this is signed and agreed to this evening, tomorrow the airport's for sale. Might not be delivered for a few years, but people need to know that land is for sale out there. Including that we're working out a deal with county on your two pieces and with the Kiwanis. As far as towers, there were a couple towers in the survey and a possible third one. And until the engineering's done, which we've agreed to the contract and signed the contract, it's pending this vote to start the actual engineering on the runway and the grading. So once they get that actual engineering done and the dirt balanced and so on, they will know at that point with the slopes, any towers that will be potentially in the way. We're pretty sure one is, possible second, maybe a third. But if you notice in the funding for the FAA on the bid sheet, there is money in there to move the towers. That's part of what they pay for. It's already paid for in their estimates. And the gas line, I'm sorry, there was a mistake there, but the gas line that was referred to the other night, the big one, was on a picture we had of where the new airport is, and folks were talking about one of the gas lines, and that was the gas line. There is another one that does go on the property, including the power line. Those have been identified by the consultant as part of the work, and those are also in the price to handle those situations. So it's pretty well defined what's there and what needs to be done, so pending final engineering. So those questions are good questions, but they have been answered, so.
I got one. I
Yes,
think what you need to verify did. If the FAA comes in after they give you money for the dirt, and they say, okay, we're not gonna give you any more money, or they just don't come up with any money. Once we get through with that, we don't spend any more money on the airport until the government comes back with money. I think this is something you need to make sure that people know, because it's not gonna be, if they don't give us the money and we go by the rules that they put down, the taxpayers will not be obligated to pay anything.
No, that's correct. And the way the system works is, this is funded by the Aviation Trust Fund, and there's money every year, and they have projects. Now that we were approved in what's called NIPIAS, the National Plan for Integrated Airline System, which is a really big deal. Our new airport's in NIPIAS, which means we're eligible for all the federal funding through the Aviation Trust Fund. And as the projects are there, we're in the pipeline now for funding. So we figure it'd take about 2 years for land acquisition before actual construction. And GDOT has us in their funding stream as part of NIPIAS, so that's coming. Now, the money you get each year is not specified. It comes over several years, and what they try to do is match up funding with steps, like clearing, grading, concrete, runway, taxiways, that sort of thing, tower movements. So these are all in chunks, and they try to line the funding with those steps and bid that year. And if for some reason Hartsfield needs something that year that takes money, it's possible to get Lillard done for a year. But I was told that typically it used to be over about an 8-year period. They did Paulding County, I think, in 5 years. They said no longer do they stretch it out. They'd rather get them built, get in use, and get the system running. So if the money doesn't come, or regards to the amount that year, that's all we do in the next year. So I can't control the federal funding, but supposed to expect probably 5 years, not 8. So not counting land acquisition, I'm talking about actual construction. That answer your question?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Make a motion, we consider approval of memorandum of agreement between the FAA, the City of Griffin, Spalding County, and the Griffin Spalding County Airport Authority for replacement of the Griffin Spalding County Airport.
We have a motion by Commissioner Johnson, a second by Commissioner Flowers Taylor for approval. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? 4-1. Thank you. Item 2, consider the request of the Spalding County Sheriff's Office to allow the Sheriff's Junior Deputy Program to utilize 837 Memorial Drive from November 17th through 22nd for storage and distribution of fruit for their annual fruit box fundraiser.
Mr. Chairman, this is the Junior Deputy Program. The only space we have available now at Memorial Drive is what used to be Premier Beauty. Premier Beauty closed their offices in June, and they're requesting to utilize this for the storage and distribution of their fruit. We approved them last year utilizing the ceramics building, but as you know, ceramics is now the home of the Athletic Hall of Fame.
Mr. Chair, move to approve the Spalding County Sheriff's Office to allow the Sheriff's Junior Deputy Program to utilize 837 Memorial Drive from November 17th to 22nd for storage and distribution of fruit for their annual fruit fundraiser.
Second.
Have a motion for approval by Commissioner Ray, second by Commissioner Miller. Any discussion? Commissioner Flowers Taylor.
I just have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like at some point to find out from the sheriff's department how they pick junior deputies and what they do in the course of the year. That was just my own question. No one? Well, I guess somebody get back to me.
Somebody get back with you.
Okay.
Or any other questions? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 5-0. Thank you. Item 3, consider approval of a contract with SAFE Incorporated to provide veterinary services for the animal shelter complying with the spay neuter before adoption ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, we did have a contract with another group. The other group was unable to fulfill that contract. This group has been working in their stead, and this contract has been reviewed and revised by the county attorney. We recommend approval. These are the same rates that the previous contract had, and Budget Vet, who originally signed the contract, did not live up to their portion of the contract, so we are replacing them.
So nothing's changed other than the firm that's doing
The firm that's doing the spay neuter.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, move to approve contract with SAFE Incorporated to provide veterinary services for the animal shelter to comply with spay neutering before adoption ordinance.
Second.
Have a motion for approval by Commissioner Ray, second by Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion? Commissioner Flowers Taylor.
Are we sure these prices are competitive?
Yes, ma'am, they are the same prices that we had from Budget Vet, and who was the low vendor at the time. The Animal Care and Control Advisory Board had made arrangements with Budget Vet, and these are the same dollar amounts that Budget Vet was doing. Budget Vet was the low contractor during that time.
This seems kind of high.
That's just hard to get, folks. This is done on site, so
Oh, okay.
it's a mobile vet service.
Oh, okay. All right.
Any other questions?
I don't.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. 5-0. Thank you. Item 4, consider eliminating the tobacco surcharge for county employees scheduled to go into effect on January 1st, 2015.
Since the